My name is Barry Allen, and I'm the fastest man alive. Hello everyone, welcome to my review of the Season 3 premiere of The Flash, titled Flashpoint. I just want to warn everyone that I will be discussing spoilers, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, please do so, unless of course you don't care about spoilers. Well, we're back everyone. After a 3-month wait period, we are back with the Season 3 premiere of Flash. And as you remember from the season finale from Season 2, Barry Allen went back in time to change the fate of his mother. And in doing so, we all assumed that it would have changed the timeline once again, and of course it did. Barry is now living in another timeline where he does not know Iris, Joe is an alcoholic, Cisco is a billionaire playboy, Caitlin is an ophthalmologist. But for Barry, the most important thing is that his mother is alive and his father never went to prison. And that is the main reason why he decided to do what he did. It's because it would give him the life and the childhood that he never got to have in his original timeline. For those of you who are familiar with the comic books, you know about the event Flashpoint. For those of you who aren't, I'll give you a little bit of information. Flashpoint was this big event that happened in 2011 where it ended the old continuity of the DC comic book universe and started a new one known as the New 52. Since then, the New 52 has ended and things have once again changed in the comic book universe. But all you need to know is that Flashpoint was initiated by the Flash, and it ushered in a new universe. Similar to what has happened in this episode, Flash has gone back in time, changed something, and now things are different. But the one main problem about this new world that Barry has created is that he's beginning to lose the memories of the world that he came from. He's beginning to lose all the memories of the people that he loved, which is a problem for him because if you know Barry, his life revolves around his family and his friends. It's very interesting to see him interact with all of these different versions of characters that we've known over the first 2 seasons, specifically his relationship with Iris. As we know, Barry has always had very strong romantic feelings towards Iris, and their relationship is very important to Barry. In this timeline that he's created, they're not friends, they didn't grow up together, they haven't really spoken or seen each other since elementary school. Also, it's very interesting to see him interact with his parents. And what I find most fascinating about that is that his parents are kind of just normal, which I guess is what Barry wanted. Barry wanted, I guess, a more normal life, a more normal upbringing. But it's just so interesting to see that Barry had to do such monumental things in order to get a very normal life. I also must mention one of my favorite characters, Cisco Ramon, specifically the version we get in the Flashpoint episode, where he is this billionaire tech playboy who doesn't really care about anybody but himself. He's very selfish, which is very much the opposite of the Cisco Ramon that we all know, who is very selfless. What is also interesting is that you can see when Barry starts talking to him and starts bringing up who the real Cisco Ramon is, or at least the Cisco Ramon that he knows, you can see that even in this new version of the character, that Cisco Ramon is still there. Wally West is now the Flash in this new timeline. Barry still has his powers, which I'm not quite sure how, because this is supposed to be a new timeline, but that's not really important because, obviously, as we know, he does end up going back to his timeline, but I'll get to that later. Wally West, as many people know, was Flash for a large amount of time during the comic books. And for those of you who don't, I'll explain it to you very briefly. In the mid-1980s, Barry Allen actually died, and Kid Flash, who was Wally West at the time, took over as the Flash, and he was the Flash all the way from the mid-1980s all the way through the 2000s. There was a large chunk of time where the only Flash that comic book readers knew was Wally West. So for a lot of people, Wally West is their Flash. For a lot of comic book readers and a lot of comic book fans, seeing Wally West on screen with the Barry Allen Flash is just a treat for them. It's really cool to see them both in the frame together, specifically when they team up to take on the rival, or who was kind of just this bad guy speedster, which kind of in the same mold that we've gotten in the first 2 seasons. In my opinion, it was all too brief. I really want to see them establish the Wally West Flash in Barry Allen's timeline, because I think we got hints of that towards the end of last season, but they never really fully committed to it. But hopefully, maybe we'll get that this season. I must also talk about Joe in this episode. It's an interesting version of Joe that I kind of wish they would have explored a little more, because you've seen 2 versions of Joe. We've seen Joe in Barry Allen's Earth, where he is Barry Allen's surrogate father, and they have a very strong relationship. We've seen Joe from Earth 2, who's this jazz singer where Barry and he do not have a good relationship. And then we've seen this version of Joe, who is kind of this alcoholic version of Joe, someone who doesn't show up to work, is constantly drunk. You see a few scenes where Barry has to go to his house, pick him up, bring him to work so that he cover for him, so that he doesn't get in trouble. It's very interesting to see Joe in that type of state. We've always seen Joe as kind of a strong, father-like figure, but in this world, he is not. He's very much the opposite of that, and from what we understand, he also doesn't have a good relationship with his children. So I would have liked to have seen them explore that a little bit more. Why is he like that? Why are his relationship with his kids the way they are? Why is he drunk all the time? Stuff like that, but we obviously won't be able to see that because at the end of this episode, Barry has to have the Reverse Flash go back in time and kill his mother, which is a very strong, powerful moment of the episode where Barry literally has to tell someone to kill his mother, someone that he's always wanted in his life. He now has to remove from his life once again. It's a very powerful, emotional decision for him, and we see kind of the ramifications of what Barry has done in the episode. We see when he gets back to his timeline that things are slightly different. Although he seems to have the same relationship with Joe that he had before, Joe doesn't have the relationship with Iris that he had before. So it leads me to question, what else has Barry changed in his timeline? And in doing so, is this now another new timeline? Because as we've seen in the show before, Barry Allen has gone back in the past a few times and changed things, therefore creating new timelines. So it is going to be very interesting going forward, seeing what else has he changed. Also, I have to say that personally, this is my favorite superhero show, and it's because I really, really like the characters. You know, some more than others, but I really like these characters and the way they mesh with one another. Specifically, how things changed during last season. So, does he still have the same relationship with Cisco and Caitlin that he had before? Is Dr. Wells still the same from before? So, if we're changing things up again, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, because I already got to a place where I really, really like these characters. One of the negative aspects of the episode for me is that I kind of wished we got more of the Flashpoint, I guess, world. I wish we had delved into that world a little bit more, delved to these alternate versions of the characters, because we had this essential 3-month build-up to this Flashpoint event, but it all happened in one episode. I thought they would have kind of fleshed it out over a few episodes, and then Barry would have to make the hard choice to go back and change things and go back to his timeline. They kind of compacted it all into one episode, and it's very interesting that they moved that fast with this plot line. I think one thing that Barry learned in this episode is that actions have consequences, specifically his actions, because when you're dealing with time, things can be very tricky. The very smallest changes can have great repercussions, and I think Barry is starting to learn that. Hopefully he won't go back in time once again and change things again and screw with things again, because he has to learn that his actions have large repercussions. Also in this episode, we got to see a small setup scene with the big bad of the season known as Dr. Alchemy. Dr. Alchemy is a character straight from the comic books who has the ability to manipulate elements. Overall, I have to say that this was a strong premiere episode. We got to see the repercussions of what Barry Allen did at the end of last season, and we also got to see where the show is setting up for the upcoming season. This has been my review of the Season 3 premiere episode of The Flash titled Flashpoint. If you like this video, please stick around because there will be a lot more episode reviews of the comic book superhero TV shows, specifically Gotham, Supergirl, Arrow, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.